In your verse speaking pieces in the performance of at the festival, I want you to think about the motivation for the piece. I want you to think about the shaping of the poem, the rhythm, the meter, and then make sure that the sense and the emotional impact and the building of the images takes preference over the meter. Don't beat out the meter of the poem unless there's a specific reason for doing so. You might want it to sound like a train running along the track, for example. But otherwise, think about the motivation behind the thoughts and the meaning of the words, and work on using your voice and your face to create the images and to build the emotional impact of the poem. You don't really need to use gesture in verse speaking either. You can use gesture if it has an underlying purpose, if it adds meaning and it adds understanding to the actual words that you're speaking. Don't just illustrate, I looked up and my head and my eyes. You don't need to illustrate simple words like that. But in the poem about 3 Rusty Nails by Roger McGough, somebody comes to somebody's house and the poem goes through these things that suggest that it might be Jesus, but the girl doesn't know that, who the man she's talking to is. But at the end, she says that he's gone away, but he's left me with these 3 rusty nails. And you can hold your hand out to suggest that the nails are in your hand. Be very careful using gestures in verse speaking, because it can interrupt the flow and it can be distracting. You certainly don't want to use any gestures while you're speaking a lyric poem, or perhaps a poem with a lyrical quality, because there the concentration is on the thought and the ideas and the images, and you need to rely on your voice and your face. It is possible, of course, in verse speaking, you have group speaking. Well, group speaking, you can do what you like, really. You can act it out, you can use costumes, you can use movement, you can have great fun with it, but you still have to be true to the piece. You don't want to add any extra words, and you can use vocal sound effects, but again, be very careful that it doesn't distract from the poem itself. When you're doing a duologue poem, a poem between 2 people, you can have fun with that too. And then you can act it a little bit and bring the characters alive. Like the poem about the Blenkinsop. Late again, Blenkinsop, the teacher says to him, and he makes all these excuses. So you can have fun being the 2 characters as you're speaking that particular poem. I want you to think about the intention and the mood and the atmosphere of the poem, what it is you want the audience to feel, and create some, perhaps if it's necessary, some humour and some laughter as you can do with your voice and your face. If the poem has a poignant moment at the end, like in It Was a Bird of Paradise, then I want you to think about using the pause and your face to suggest those poignant moments, like at the end of that poem when they've killed the bird and they've thrown it into the river, but all the children cried. So you can use pause to emphasize as well. Don't just use stress and bang out the words. When you come to choosing your piece, if in your own choice verse speaking, make sure you choose a poem that gives you scope to change mood, change atmosphere, and create vocal variety and variety of pace as well. That means that we don't want to have nursery rhymes or jokes, because they don't give you a chance to build and develop the mood and the atmosphere. And it can be a very short poem. For very young people, it can be 6 lines, 8 lines, but it needs to have some development. It needs to have some contrast. So be careful what it is that you choose to bring that poem alive.